Liam Jones felt the ship shudder under yet another barrage of incoming fire, and despite his best efforts at the helm, he knew the diplomatic vessel was spiraling into a crash he might not walk away from. The console flickered erratically, and sirens wailed in his earpiece. Sweat mingled with the blood trickling down his forehead. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to remain calm. He was no soldier, but he had the training of a Galactic Alliance envoy, enough to keep his wits about him even as sparks erupted from damaged systems all around. "Mayday," he managed to say into the short-range transmitter. "Envoy Vessel Concord. Sustaining critical damage. Going down on Caraxis. Anyone, please respond." His voice broke as the ship lurched violently, and then the signal cut out with a burst of static. Through the cracked front view screen, Caraxis loomed larger and larger. Swathes of crimson forest covered the planet's surface, and the atmosphere glowed faintly purple. Liam had read about Caraxis in the official reports, a warrior culture with advanced weaponry on the cusp of a formal alliance with his own people. The planet's leadership had proven challenging during negotiations, and Liam had been sent here to deliver a vital message and finalize agreements. Now, battered by some unknown attacker, his vessel was about to slam into hostile territory. The flight console beeped an emergency warning. Hull integrity at 20%. With power systems failing, the safety protocols were useless. Liam guided the crippled ship into a downward angle, hoping to find a clearing in the dense red-tinted forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. The friction of atmospheric entry made the hull screech like tortured metal, and the temperature soared in the cockpit. He braced for impact. The ground rushed up, a blur of red foliage and rocky hills. The vessel smashed through a canopy of towering trees, crushing branches and sending them flying in splinters that clanged against what remained of the hull. The sudden momentum shift threw Liam forward. A final crash roared in his ears, and everything became searing pain followed by darkness. Zavra crouched low in the rust-hued underbrush, her silver-blue fur rippling along powerful arms. She was taller than most Caraxians, nearly 7 feet of sleek muscle, and she moved with an uncanny silence through the dense forest. The soft hush of breezes in the crimson leaves was interrupted by something that felt profoundly wrong in her domain. Smoke, the screech of metal, and the acrid tang of melted alloys. Her pointed ears twitched, detecting an echo humans would never perceive. She raised one hand, signaling her hunting party to freeze. Behind her, at least a dozen warriors crouched in deference to their queen. Their eyes were on her as they awaited orders. She looked over her shoulder and whispered, "Terrace." The broad-shouldered warrior, his russet fur painted in dark ceremonial streaks, stepped forward. "My queen, take half the hunters, circle west," she commanded. "I will approach from the east with the rest." Terrace nodded sharply, then gestured for several Caraxians to follow. Soon, Zavra was left with 5 loyal hunters, every one of them silent and watchful. The group advanced through a maze of towering trunks and dense foliage, guided by the reek of burning chemicals in the air. Zavra's golden eyes narrowed as the scent grew stronger. From a vantage between massive crimson trees, she finally saw the source, a crashed vessel, its battered hull half buried in the forest floor. Smoke curled upward, and mechanical parts still hissed with residual heat. A tangle of metal near one side parted abruptly, and something sparked, making one of her hunters growl under his breath. Zavra edged closer. The insignia on the side of the twisted hull was unmistakable, the crest of the Galactic Alliance. Humans. She had met humans once, in a formal setting during early negotiations. Delicate, strangely hairless creatures with smooth skin and bright eyes that always seemed too expressive. Most Caraxians harbored suspicion or downright hostility toward them, but Zavra was more open-minded, provided it served Caraxis's interests. She signaled with her tail for her hunters to fan out. One of them peered cautiously through a shattered viewport. "I see movement," he growled. "Might be a survivor." Zavra approached, ignoring the acrid stench that made her nostrils flare. Through the broken glass, she glimpsed a single human male sprawled amid a nest of tangled wires. His hair was matted with blood, and his breathing was shallow but present. A wave of instincts washed over her, the Karashian drive to claim a worthy find, but also that faint urge for mercy that not every Karasian possessed. She drew her blade, and one of the hunters nearby said, "Shall we end his suffering, my queen?" The idea was not uncommon. Injured interlopers often met a swift death in the Karasian forests, but something in her urged caution. She studied his smooth skin, the strange garments of an envoy pilot's suit, the insignia that marked him as an official. She sheathed her blade. "No," she said firmly, her voice carrying the deep timbre of authority. "This one is mine." A rustle in the undergrowth heralded Terrace's return. His eyes took in the scene. "My queen, Counselor Dravk will not be pleased if we harbor a human." Zavra's ears flattened briefly. Dravk was one of her greatest headaches, a powerful voice on the War Council, suspicious of all outsiders. "Let him," she growled. "I am still queen. This human belongs to me. By ancient law, anything taken in my hunting grounds is my rightful claim." Her hunters murmured their approval, though a few seemed uncertain. Regardless, not one dared question their queen openly. With a surprising gentleness, Zavra pulled the unconscious human free of the wreck, slipping an arm under his shoulders and hoisting him up. He stirred slightly, his eyelids fluttering open. For just an instant, his blue eyes met hers, and she found herself taken aback by the raw confusion and pain in them. He sagged forward, unconscious again. They made their way back through the crimson undergrowth. Zavra led the party at an even pace, mindful of the fragile creature in her arms. Her tail, normally waving with regal confidence, was lowered in concentration. She did not know why she bothered to keep him alive, beyond the fleeting thought that an alliance envoy might prove a valuable piece on the political chessboard. And if he proved worthless, she could discard him later. Tall spires of the royal compound soon came into view. The architecture on Caraxes was a blend of natural stone outcroppings, carved over generations, and modern metallic structures that soared like twisted claws into the sky. Guards at the main gate stiffened in surprise as their queen strode past with a human draped across her arms. She ignored their stares, pressing forward into the labyrinth of passages within. Counselor Dravk himself stood waiting near her private chambers, black fur shining in the dim lights. His yellow eyes widened when he saw the unconscious human. "My queen," he began, voice raspy. "Might I ask why you—" "You may not," she snapped, striding past him. "He is my property." Without waiting for a rebuttal, she continued until she entered a sparsely furnished room lined with shelves of medical supplies. "Summon Healer Evren," she commanded a nearby attendant, "and prepare the southern chamber." Within minutes, a gray-furred female Karasian, Evren, arrived and bent over the unconscious human. Her eyes took in the torn clothing, the blood, the bruises. She pressed a diagnostic scanner to his brow, its screen flashing data. "He will live," she said at last, "though I'll need to close the gash on his forehead and check for internal bleeding. This is an alien physiology, but I have some knowledge of humans from earlier medical briefings." Zavra nodded. "Do whatever is necessary. I want him awake. I have questions." Evren set to work, and Zavra found herself lingering, arms crossed, watching the rise and fall of the human's chest. This man, so fragile, could turn the tides of Caraxes's future, if indeed he was an envoy, if indeed he possessed knowledge that might be valuable. Her golden eyes flicked toward the door. Beyond it, Dravk would be scheming, no doubt planning to use this incident to undermine her rule. She would have to be ready. Liam blinked into consciousness hours later. The soft furs beneath him felt strange, especially when his memory sputtered and reminded him of the crash. Had he survived that impact? He tried to sit up, but a wave of agony crashed through his ribs, and he slumped back with a groan. A warm voice spoke. "You should remain still until the salve has fully set." He turned his head and saw an older Karsian female watching him with a critical eye, arms folded over her chest. She wore simple attire and carried a small tray of supplies. "What?" he croaked, realizing his throat was parched. "Where am I?" "In the chambers of Queen Zavra," said the female, stepping forward. "My name is Everin. I'm a healer." "Queen Zavra," he repeated, his voice husky. He'd heard the name, but never seen the individual. "Caraxis. To crash my ship." He remembered the final transmissions, the unstoppable freefall. An image flashed, a tall figure with silver-blue fur, golden eyes, lifting him out of the wreckage. His heart pounded. "Am I a prisoner?" Everin's muzzle quirked in a wry smile. "You belong to our queen by right of claim. She found you in her hunting grounds." He tried to push himself up again, ignoring the protest of his aching body. "In your culture, that means I'm property?" "Yes," Everin confirmed, unblinking. "It is an ancient tradition, and you are alive only because our queen sees some benefit in that." Liam caught his reflection in a mirror across the chamber. Blood had been cleaned away, leaving a bandage over his brow. Bruises mottled his skin, and his chest and ribs were swathed in tight wrappings that smelled faintly herbal. He sank back onto the furs, drawing in a shaky breath. "I have to speak to someone in authority. I'm a diplomatic envoy." Everin's gaze flickered. "Zavra is authority. You will speak to her soon enough." When Zavra entered, hours later, Liam recognized her immediately from the image burned into his memory. The tall Carsian woman with silver-blue fur, a regal bearing, and eyes that glowed like molten gold. She wore an ornate bodysuit that emphasized her statuesque physique, a short cloak trailing behind. A blade was strapped to her hip, and her bushy tail swayed with quiet confidence. He tried to sit up to show respect, but the pain made him wince. He was startled when she moved closer, leaning down so that her face hovered just above his. For a moment, he inhaled her scent, wild and musky, yet oddly inviting. "You're awake, human," she said, her voice carrying that low timbre of command. "Now you can explain why you invaded my world." The question, delivered so bluntly, almost made him laugh. "Invaded?" he managed to say, swallowing the dryness in his throat. "I'm a diplomat, not an invader. My ship was attacked and forced down. We lost all control. I didn't choose this place to crash." "And yet," she said, stepping back, tail snapping in mild frustration, "the Alliance has official landing zones on Caraxis. You did not land in one. You destroyed part of my hunting grounds." He exhaled slowly. "Look, I never planned this. I suspect we were targeted by someone within the Alliance itself. Possibly Director Harlow. I came here with urgent news that renegade Alliance officials have been selling advanced weaponry to the Vrex Collective, your longtime enemy. I was supposed to warn you, and, well, the short version is that I ended up shot down. I can't prove it yet, but I have data crystals in the secure vault of my ship." Zavra watched him, her expression difficult to read. Finally, she said, "This is quite the tale, human. Convenient that you present yourself as a victim, claiming some hidden plot. Why should I believe you?" "Because it's the truth," Liam said simply, meeting her gaze. He noticed the subtle shift of her ears, the small flicker that might have indicated uncertainty or curiosity. She let a short rumble escape her throat. "Even if I consider believing you, it remains that you are now my property. Carsian law is clear, and I am within my rights to do with you as I please." He felt a shiver of mingled fear and fascination. This was a queen, a predator, and she was dangerous. Yet there was something about her that radiated intelligence and a willingness to judge him on his merits. "What do you intend to do with me?" "I haven't decided," she admitted. "For now, you live. Tomorrow, the War Council will convene, and I will present you. If your words hold any merit, they will want to hear them. If not," her tail swished again, "I may simply keep you around, or kill you. We'll see which is more convenient." With that casual threat, she pivoted on her heel and exited, leaving Liam to stare after her. A swirl of conflicting emotions churned inside him. He'd prepared for negotiations, for courtly rituals, for cultural misunderstandings. But not for this. He was an official envoy, and now he was basically a trophy of the queen, powerless and injured, reliant on her goodwill. In the corridor beyond, he could hear the low murmurs of Cardassian guards. He closed his eyes, exhaustion creeping over him again. Counselor Dravk paced the main hall of the palace with impatience. His black fur was meticulously groomed, his eyes shining a predatory yellow in the torchlight that lined the walls. Ever since the arrival of that human, Dravk had felt the shift in the air. It was an opportunity for him. He disliked outsiders with a passion and believed Caraxes could stand alone, but the Queen was too receptive to foreign alliances for his taste. He wanted to use the fiasco of the crashed ship to topple her, or at least weaken her hold on power. He turned when he heard footsteps. One of his loyal supporters, a younger Cardassian warrior, bowed quickly. "My Lord Counselor, the Queen has taken the human to her private quarters." "Indeed," Dravk growled softly. "Then it's worse than I feared. She means to keep him for herself." The young warrior lowered his gaze. "Yes, my lord. And rumors say she might present him at tomorrow's War Council session." Dravk's muzzle curled back in displeasure, showing sharp canines. "Then I will be ready," he hissed. "Summon the others. We cannot allow the human to sway any minds, nor can we allow Zavra to continue defying Cardassian tradition. She thinks she can claim an alien as if it's a prized beast. I'll make sure the council sees this as treachery." The warrior nodded once more and departed. Left alone in the hall, Dravk stared at the flickering lights. His influence on the council was formidable, and he felt certain that if he played his hand right, he could force a Carvo's challenge, an ancient rite of combat that could remove Zavra from the throne if she lost. She was formidable, yes, but not invincible. Her old wound might be her undoing. Even if she won, the spectacle would at least sow further discord. And that chaos, Dravk could shape to his advantage. By the time morning arrived, Liam was able to stand, gingerly, and dress himself in a simple tunic and trousers left out for him. The garments seemed sized for a human form, which implied the Caraxians had made clothing for other visitors in the past. He ran a hand through his dark hair, still sore from the impact. At least he was alive, though he wondered how long that would remain true. A guard escorted him to the War Council chamber, where Zavra was already seated at a crescent-shaped table that rose above the floor. Around her, 6 other Caraxians, each representing a facet of the council, took their places. Dravk was among them, looking especially displeased. The circular room had tall pillars carved from the planet's dark stone, interspersed with advanced technology for communications and security. An odd blend of archaic grandeur and futuristic design. Zavra motioned for Liam to stand in the center of the chamber. The eyes of the council members bore into him with a mix of curiosity, hostility, and skepticism. Dravk bared his teeth in a near snarl. "State your name and your business," he demanded. Liam dipped his head respectfully, though he felt his nerves spark. "My name is Liam Jones, envoy of the Galactic Alliance. I came to Caraxes to discuss final steps toward a formal treaty of cooperation. However, my ship was attacked by unknown forces and forced down before I could reach the official landing zone. I suspect the involvement of certain rogue elements in the Alliance who have been selling advanced weaponry to the Vrex Collective." He paused, and the council erupted into low growls and mutters. The mention of the Vrex triggered immediate agitation. Everyone knew the Vrex had contested Caraxes' territory for decades. Dravk stood abruptly, his voice booming. "So you claim your own people attacked you, envoy? That is quite the story. Perhaps you crashed on purpose to infiltrate us. The Alliance has always sought ways to undermine our sovereignty." Liam tried to remain calm. "With respect, Counselor, I have no reason to crash my own vessel. Any data in my ship's secure vault will confirm my identity and mission. If your salvage teams can recover that vault, we can prove these weapon sales are happening." Zavra spoke, her voice low but clear. Dravk, the presence of the Alliance insignia on his ship was genuine. Moreover, I discovered him in my hunting grounds. He is under my protection and claim. "Claim," Dravk repeated acidly. "Yes, the Queen and her archaic laws of the hunt. But we must remember that the presence of a human in Caraxes, unannounced, is a grave violation. He should be handed over for trial, or better yet, executed. Before Zavra could respond, Liam made himself speak. I'm here to help prevent a larger war. If Caraxes is left unaware of these illegal arms deals, the Vrex might soon have enough firepower to overwhelm your defenses. There are those in the Alliance profiting from conflict, and they want Caraxes destabilized. A female counselor with rust-colored fur leaned forward. You talk of evidence in your crashed ship, but how convenient that it might be destroyed or irretrievable. We only have your word. Draft seized on that. Precisely. The War Council has no reason to trust this human's tall tales. Zavra's golden gaze flicked between Dravk and Liam. She drummed her claws lightly on the stone table. If he speaks truth, ignoring him is perilous. If he lies, executing him might serve no purpose. She took a breath. We shall examine the data vault if it can be recovered. Until then, he remains my property. My queen, Drav said with an oily politeness that did little to hide his contempt, I formally challenge your right to keep a human in our midst without council approval. Under Carasian law, I invoke Carvos to determine if you are fit to rule in the face of this outsider threat. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. Liam's stomach dropped. He remembered reading about Carvos, a ritual trial by combat that resolved leadership disputes on Caraxes. Zavra's ears flicked back. You dare challenge me, Draft? He bowed mockingly. I do. Carvos at dusk in the sacred arena. If you refuse, the council will rule you unfit to lead. The tension in the chamber became palpable. Zavra rose slowly, the lines of her body bristling. Then I accept, she said. Let blood speak truth. Liam wanted to protest, but the look Zavra shot him warned him to. Remain silent. He understood enough about Carasian culture to know that interfering could only worsen the situation. Draft gave a satisfied smirk and departed with several of his supporters. The rest of the council rose, drifting out, muttering among themselves. Only Zavra and Liam remained. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. You have become the center of a political storm. Human. I hope your life is worth the trouble. He hesitated. I didn't ask for you to fight to the death. That's how Caraxes works, she said simply. Draft has coveted my throne since I ascended. Now you've given him an excuse to force a challenge. And I have no intention of backing down. Then let me help, he said, surprising himself with the intensity in his voice. I've read about Carasian anatomy. I might not be a physician by trade, but I have certain training. Is it true you have an old injury that might hamper you? I noticed you favor your left side. She studied him sharply, her golden eyes narrowing. You're more observant than I expected. Yes, I have an old wound near the secondary nerve cluster. Carvos is no ceremonial duel. Draft will exploit any weakness. He took a breath. Then let me at least do what I can. And if that fails, I'll do whatever is needed to keep you alive. She tilted her head, regarding him with a flicker of amusement and curiosity. You, a human, want to save me? I'm your captor, remember? Captors or not, he murmured, we share a common cause, stopping the people who attack my ship, who want war for profit. If Drav takes over Caraxes, I doubt you, or I survive anyway. Something in her gaze softened briefly. Then she inclined her head. Very well, come with me. They retreated to Zavra's private training hall, an expansive space with racks of ancient bladed weapons alongside modern energy lance prototypes. Carasian warriors who had been practicing there quickly left at a signal from Zavra, giving the queen and her human captive room. Zavra moved to a far wall, removing her ornate cloak and selecting a short energy blade. She ignited it with a soft hum, the edge glowing faintly. Carvos, she explained, allows any weapon, but each combatant has only one. Draft prefers a long staff with twin blades at each end. He believes it grants him reach. She demonstrated a sequence of swift strikes that left arcs of light in the air. Liam watched, impressed by her speed and agility. The silver blue fur along her arms rippled with each fluid motion. He noticed a small hitch when she twisted to a particular angle. Your left side, he said, stepping closer. That's where it hurts, right? She froze, the tip of her blade lowering. Are you always so direct? He shrugged, then placed a hand on that spot. She flinched, baring her teeth. Careful, she growled. Liam forced a calm smile. Sorry. May I? He laid his palm gently on the base of her shoulder. Through her fur, he could feel the tension in the muscle beneath. She stiffened, ready to swat him away, but let him proceed. There's a tight knot here, probably scar tissue pressing on nerves. Yes, she admitted grudgingly. It was from a previous challenge. Draft knows about it. He pressed lightly, feeling the muscles quiver under his touch. I've studied basic field medicine. Alliance envoys are trained to handle injuries in remote areas. I might be able to loosen this enough to help you move more freely. Zavra's eyes narrowed. And if I trust you, you could sabotage me. You might want Draft to win. Then why aren't you throwing me out? Liam countered gently. Because you suspect I'm telling the truth about the arms deal. And you want to keep me alive until you confirm it. If Draft kills you, then my life ends too, since I'm your claimed property. It's in my best interest to see you defeat him. A low growl escaped her, but she nodded. Very well, human. Do what you must. He guided her to a nearby bench. She removed part of her armor around her shoulders, revealing the sleek fur and the hint of a scar below. Crouching behind her, he placed his hands gently on the knotted muscles, applying slow, deliberate pressure. She hissed through clenched teeth at first, but he could feel the tension gradually yield. Minutes passed, the rhythmic hush of their breathing the only sound in the chamber. Liam found himself hyper-aware of her presence, the sheer strength in her body, the closeness of her unique scent. Finally, she let out a sigh, rolling her shoulder. Better, she murmured. She turned, her face now only inches from his. You've done something no Carasian has managed. He pulled away, swallowing. Glad to help. She rose to her full height, tail snapping once through the air in a display of renewed confidence. Kulme. The sun will set soon. The arena awaits. Twilight washed Caraxis in shades of purple and crimson as thousands of spectators filled the sacred arena, a circular amphitheater. Carved from an ancient crater, torches blazed and banners draped the walls. Dravk entered first, a tall figure with black fur etched in red war paint, carrying a gleaming double-bladed staff that hummed with lethal energy. The crowd shouted, some chanting his name, others murmuring in curiosity. Then Zavra emerged. She wore minimal armor across her chest and thighs, exposing the sinewy strength of her limbs. In her right hand, she held the short energy blade that Liam had seen earlier, but it glowed with a deeper intensity now, as if responding to her formidable will. She strode across the arena floor, tail high, eyes locked on Draft. The roar of the crowd grew louder, echoing across the stands. Liam watched from a special box reserved for the Queen's attendants. His heart hammered. He realized that if she lost, he had no allies left. He might be executed, or worse. He tried to ignore the stares of hostile Caraxians who resented a human in such a privileged spot. An elder Carasian stepped forward, raising a carved staff. Carvos, the elder proclaimed. The challenge has been issued and accepted. Let blood speak truth. Then he stepped back, leaving a wide circle in which the two combatants would fight. Drak wasted no time. He spun his staff, the dual blades shimmering with deadly arcs, then slashed at Zavra. She dodged lightly, returning a swift counter that grazed his side. Sparks flew. First blood to the Queen. A roar rose from part of the crowd. Liam caught the faintest smile on Zavra's lips. But Dravk was not deterred. He pressed on, his reach advantage allowing him to keep her at bay. She weaved and ducked, but Liam noticed the strain on her face. They traded blows, each strike accompanied by a flash of neon light and the sizzling of energy fields clashing. Dravk's staff hammered at Zavra's defenses again and again. She parried as best she could, showing impressive reflexes, but he was bigger and physically stronger. At last, a savage thrust clipped her left shoulder, exactly where her old injury lay. She stumbled, letting out a hiss of pain. Dravk recognized his opportunity and advanced, staff raised high to deliver a crushing blow. No! Liam shouted, forgetting himself. He saw her hesitate, ears flicking toward the sound of his voice. The nerve cluster, roll right. Just as Draft brought his staff down, Zavra rolled not away from the blow, but toward it. This unexpected maneuver threw Draft off balance, and she drove her short blade upward into the gap in his armor at his ribs. The black fur around the wound turned slick with dark blood as Draft staggered backward. A hush fell. Draft bared his teeth in an enraged snarl, ignoring the wound. He lunged again, swinging the staff with near-desperate fury. Zavra blocked the first strike, but the second blow shattered her blade, sending fragments scattering. Liam's heart seized. Draft thrust the staff forward, but Zavra darted in close, too close for him to maneuver effectively. She drove her clawed hand into the bleeding wound, hooking her fingers into his flesh. Draft froze in horror. Leaning close, Zavra whispered something only he could hear, then twisted her hand mercilessly. He let out a strangled gasp and collapsed. The elder's voice, resonant and solemn, echoed across the silenced arena. Victory to Queen Zavra. The challenge is answered. Carvos is complete. The crowd erupted into noise, some cheering, some subdued. Zavra stood over Draft's body, breathing heavily, blood dripping from her claws. At length, she turned and walked away, tail lashing. No one dared block her path. She flicked her gaze to where Liam stood, and he felt a strange relief flood through him. She was alive. For now, so was he. Zavra's private recovery chamber was quiet, lit only by the glow of floating lanterns. Liam paced outside anxiously until the guards let him in. She was seated on a raised platform, healers applying salves to the gash on her shoulder. Her ears were flattened in irritation at the fuss they were making, but her eyes snapped to him the moment he entered. "You interfered," she stated flatly when the healers finished and departed. "I couldn't watch you die," he said simply. For a moment, neither spoke. The tension in the air was palpable. Then she sighed, the anger in her expression draining away. "Why? I am your captor, not your ally." He stepped closer. "Maybe you could be both," he said. "Or something else entirely. Look, I owe you my life, but it's more than that. If Draft took control, you and I would both be finished." She studied him for a long moment, then waved him nearer. He approached the bench, and her golden eyes locked on his. There was a flicker of gratitude, quickly masked. "You continue to surprise me, human." She exhaled slowly. "I never expected a captive to risk so much for me." Before he could respond, a frantic knock sounded at the door. A junior officer stumbled in without proper ceremony. "My queen," he panted, bowing. "Lo, we've recovered the data vault from the crashed ship. It contains unsettling information. The Alliance, it appears that the missiles that took down his vessel came from an Alliance warship." Liam's heart lurched. "I was right," he whispered, shock mixing with bitter confirmation. "Someone in the Alliance wants me dead." Zavra accepted a small projection device the officer handed her. She tapped its interface, scanning the readout. "Yes," she said, her voice low. "It looks like Director Harlow of your own high command ordered your elimination. You were never meant to survive. The question is, why?" "Because I was carrying evidence," Liam said grimly. "Evidence that certain Alliance figures are selling arms to the Vrex, fueling conflict and profiting from it." Zavra's fur bristled along her spine. "Then they will keep coming to silence you, and to prevent Caraxes from learning the truth." A heavy silence descended. Liam felt a swell of determination. "I have to reach someone trustworthy in the Alliance, pass along the data. If Admiral Reeves sees this, she'll blow the whistle on Harlow. We can stop the arms trafficking, but not if I'm stranded and labeled a fugitive, and not if Caraxes tears itself apart." Zavra stood, ignoring the wince of pain. She towered over him, scanning his face. "Then we find a way. My war council is in disarray, Draft supporters stirring resentment against me for claiming you. But I have no desire to cede Caraxes to chaos, nor do I want an interstellar war on our doorstep." He clasped his hands, fighting a sense of urgency. "We need to salvage the full set of data from my ship, get it to Admiral Reeves. But the Alliance might have forces en route. We're both in danger here. She nodded once. Then we must move quickly. Draft's allies will not wait. They will question my right to keep you yet again, or stage a coup if they sense my power is vulnerable. The War Council meets in the morning to discuss this new revelation. We must prepare for more treachery. Morning came with ominous stillness in the corridors of the palace. As Zavra walked alongside Liam, escorted by a small squad of loyal guards, they noticed alarmingly few soldiers at the usual posts. Each step echoed off the stone, setting them on edge. Terrace, returning from a scouting mission, met them at an intersection, his russet fur singed in places. "My queen," he breathed, bowing quickly. Draft supporters convened an emergency session overnight. "They're calling your claim on the human an act of treason, saying you've aligned with the Alliance to undermine Caraxes. I barely escaped an ambush in the eastern barracks." Zavra's tail lashed. "So the coup has begun." She looked to Liam. "They will blame you and attempt to wrest power from me. Meanwhile, if your Alliance forces arrive, they might side with the usurpers or simply destroy everything to hide Harlow's wrongdoing. We must get off-world." Liam's eyes widened. "Off-world? The spaceport is probably locked down, and they'll be expecting us there. Is there another way?" She nodded sharply. "There's a small, older communications relay in the northern mountains. It has a landing pad for maintenance craft. We can call for neutral transport, or at least attempt to reach your Admiral Reeves on a secure channel. But first, we must escape the city." Terrace stepped forward. "I'll gather the loyalists. We can mount a defense, buy you time to get to the relay." Zavra shook her head. "We cannot hold the palace. Draft's men have the advantage of position and likely outside help. Rally who you can, then meet us at the covert exit behind the old archives." "Move." Terrace sprinted away. Zavra motioned for Liam to follow. They ducked through torchlit corridors and arrived at a broad passage where 5 guards loyal to Draft stood watch. Instantly, the guards raised their weapons. Zavra snarled, brandishing her short blade. Liam, though unarmed, positioned himself behind her. The queen lunged, and in a series of swift strikes, downed 2 guards before they could even fire. The remaining 3 scrambled to counter. One shot a burst of energy at Liam, who dove aside, heart pounding. Zavra spun, disarming the guard with a vicious slash of her claws. The second guard rushed her from behind. Liam, seeing the imminent danger, seized a fallen weapon from the floor and fired. The beam clipped the guard's leg, causing him to stumble. Zavra finished him with a single blow. The final guard surrendered, dropping his weapon and backing away with terror in his eyes. Zavra snarled, "Out of my sight. If you warn the others, I'll get you next time." The guard fled. Liam caught his breath. That was close. She gave him a brief nod, eyeing him with a new respect. "You saved me again." They continued through a hidden side passage that led down a spiral stair into an old stone corridor. The walls were engraved with ancient Carcian runes. Zavra pressed a sequence of symbols, and a slab of rock slid aside, revealing a narrow tunnel. Stale air hit them. She beckoned him in, lighting a small handheld glow lamp. "This leads beyond the city walls if we follow it far enough." They heard distant shouts echoing through the palace, the unmistakable stamp of boots. "Come on," Zavra urged, picking up the pace. The tunnel stretched on for what felt like hours, the darkness pressing close, the only sound their breathing and footsteps. Several times they paused, listening for any sign of pursuit. None came. The corridor ended at a small chamber with an exit disguised behind overgrown vines, leading onto a rocky ledge outside the city's outer perimeter. Glimpsing the capital spread below, they saw the scale of the chaos. Fires in some districts, squads of soldiers locking down thoroughfares. Overhead, atmospheric sensors blinked, searching. Liam spotted the glimmer of what looked like distant starships approaching from orbit. He felt an icy dread. "We have to move fast." Zavra nodded. "The northern territories are rugged, but I know a route that will take us to an old hunting retreat where we can gather supplies. Then onto the communications relay." They descended the ledge and slipped into the forest. The massive crimson trees formed a canopy that blocked out some of the morning light, bathing them in shifting red shadows. Zavra moved with feline grace, occasionally signaling for Liam to stop or crouch, her ears swiveling to pick up faint noises. Adrenaline coursed through him. Every step felt precarious. He'd read about Carcian wildlife and the predatory beasts that prowled these lands. On top of that, Draft's allies would be searching. They trudged on for an hour. At length, the forest opened into a small clearing. Hidden beneath camouflage netting was a compact shelter of Carcian design. Zavra tapped a code onto a panel, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the single chamber was Spartan, a bunk, a weapon rack, several sealed crates. "One of my private retreats," she explained, setting aside the glow lamp. "We can rest here, gather what we need." Liam lowered himself onto a bench, exhaling heavily. His ribs still ached, but the rest and the salve had helped. He watched as Zavra sifted through the crates, retrieving energy cells, food rations, and a first aid kit. He found his gaze drifting to her silver-blue fur, the ripple of muscle along her arms. She caught him staring and paused. "What is it, human?" He flushed slightly. "You could have abandoned me back there, or let Drav kill me. But you didn't." She set down the supplies and faced him. "When I found you, I thought you might be a trophy, a curiosity, a means of strengthening my influence, or so I imagined. But it seems I've claimed more than I anticipated." Her voice was soft, almost reflective. He managed a small smile. "I may not be much of a soldier, but I'll do my best to help you." She leaned forward, her expression intense. "We stand against a tide of enemies. Your people who betrayed you, my own subjects who betrayed me. Can we trust each other?" He met her eyes. "I have no one else I trust on this planet. And you? Well, you're risking your throne. All for what? For me, or the bigger cause?" Her lips curled in a half-smile. "Both, perhaps. If you're the key to unraveling Harlow's conspiracy, then saving you may save my world. And you saved me in the arena. You gave me that edge." The tip of her tail brushed against his calf, almost an unconscious gesture of possession. He found himself leaning closer. "Zavra," a sudden beep from the shelter security console cut him off. She stiffened, turning to the panel. Someone's approaching. A single ship, not Alliance design. They readied their weapons. Her, with a Carcian energy pistol and blade. Him with a rifle from the crate. Minutes later, a voice crackled through a speaker. "My queen, are you inside? It's Terrace. I have a transport. We must leave now." They exchanged glances. "We have no choice," she murmured. Pressing a switch, she opened the door. Outside, Terrace waited by a sleek Carcian scout vessel that hovered just above the ground. His fur was scorched, and his eyes glinted with urgency. "My queen," he panted, bowing quickly. "Mila got word to me that you had fled the palace. Draftsmen are searching the entire region with drones. We must go." Zavra gave a curt nod. "We aim for the Northern Communications Relay." She gestured for Liam to board. As soon as they were strapped in, Terrace lifted off, the scout vessel humming with stealth systems. They soared above the crimson treetops, the capital dwindling behind them. Alarms on the console beeped with warnings of enemy scanners. Terrace deftly wove an evasive path, heading deeper into the mountainous north. Below, the terrain changed from dense forest to jagged rocky spires that shimmered faintly under the planet's purple sky. "Those are the shattered peaks," Zavra explained to Liam. "Rich in magnetic ores that interfere with scanning technology. If we can reach them, we can hide from pursuit." But before they could make it, the console erupted with an alarm. Multiple contacts inbound, Terrace barked. Alliance dropships and Carcian gunboats. They formed a net. "Can we slip past them?" Liam asked, trying to keep calm. "Not without engaging," Terrace replied through gritted teeth. He banked sharply, weaving between rocky outcroppings. The stealth systems masked their heat signature, but the trail of smoke from the battered scout was enough of a clue for the pursuers. Zavra fired the rear turret at one Carcian gunboat that swooped too close, forcing it to veer off. Suddenly, a bright beam lanced across the ship's flank, sending a jolt through the cabin. Consoles flickered, and an alarm screeched. "We're hit," Terrace snarled, wrestling with the controls. Propulsion is failing. We'll make the shattered peaks, but we're crashing. Liam clung to his seat. Zavra stood behind Terrace, bracing herself with one hand on the back of the pilot's chair. The mountains rose ahead, an inhospitable range of jagged peaks that glowed with metallic veins in the sunlight. The ship shuddered violently as it lost altitude, plummeting toward a narrow ravine. "Brace!" Terrace shouted. The scout craft slammed into a ledge, skidded across jagged rocks, then tumbled end over end. Liam felt an impact to his head, and the world spun away into blackness. He woke to the taste of blood and the smell of burning metal. A roar of collapsing rock echoed somewhere behind him. Every muscle screamed in pain, but he forced himself to move. Twisted shards of the hull pinned his legs partially, but he managed to wriggle free. "Zavra," he called hoarsely, fear gripping him. "Here," came her voice, pained but alive. She crawled from the wreckage, a nasty gash on her arm that stained her silver-blue fur with dark red. Her eyes locked on him. "Don't shout. Alliance patrols might be near." Despite her injury, she helped him pull free a battered Terrace, who groaned weakly. They checked the Citron for life signs. He was breathing, though unconscious. Zavra pressed a field bandage to his wounds. "He'll live, but we must find shelter. The magnetic anomalies around the shattered peaks will hide us for a bit, but ground troops will come searching." Liam glanced around. They were wedged between towering rock formations, sharp and twisted, reflecting the faint glimmer of the purple sky. "We can't stay here." "No," Zavra agreed. She lifted Terrace across her shoulders with a grimace, ignoring the pain in her own wounded arm. "There's an outpost about 2 days' journey from here. Commander Maris, an old ally of my mother's, oversees it. If we reach it, we might find refuge." They began to stagger through the ravine, picking their way over rubble, every step a struggle. Liam kept his rifle close, scanning for threats. The day passed in a blur of slow progress and mounting exhaustion. By nightfall, they found a shallow cave that offered some protection. Liam collapsed inside, working with trembling hands to start a small fire from scraps of debris. Zavra eased Terrace onto a makeshift bed of leaves, checking his vitals. Then she turned her attention to Liam's injuries. "You fought well," she said softly, applying salve to a deep cut on his forehead. "Few humans would charge into open battle as you did, especially to protect me." "They stopped being my people when they shot me down," he replied grimly. He looked into her eyes. "And I couldn't let you get hurt again. You saved me first." She lingered, her claws resting gently on his cheek. "What?" He swallowed. "I don't know exactly, but in the midst of all this chaos, I've come to care about you, Zavra. You're not just my captor. You're someone I respect. And more than that," she exhaled, the tension in her shoulders softening. "When I claimed you, I thought I was taking a strange prize, an alien trophy. Instead, I found something else." Her voice grew quieter. "Among Caraxians, there is a concept we call the soul bond, a recognition between two warriors of matching spirits. I never believed I would find it in a human." He felt a flutter in his chest, a hope he hadn't realized was there. For a moment, they were close, the flickering firelight dancing on her silver-blue fur and his bruised face. Then she turned away, focusing again on Terrace's bandages, as if collecting herself. The night passed fitfully, with each of them dozing in brief intervals while the other kept watch. They woke at dawn to see Alliance vessels circling at high altitude. The oppressive peaks hid them from direct scanning, but it was only a matter of time before ground patrols arrived. Shouldering what gear they had salvaged, they pressed on. Zavra carried Terrace for as long as she could, and then Liam insisted on taking a turn, though the Carcian warrior was significantly heavier than any human he'd ever carried. By midday, they could see the outline of the outpost nestled in a high ridge. Its walls blended with the rocky terrain, a design typical of Carcian military engineering. As they neared, a group of sentries emerged, weapons raised. But upon seeing the queen and her injured companion, they froze in surprise. "Queen Zavra," said the lead guard, bowing with visible relief. Commander Maris will be pleased you've arrived. We heard rumors of a coup in the capital. We barely escaped, she said, nodding once. Take Terrace to the infirmary. I need to see Commander Maris. Liam and Zavra followed the guard into a large central building. A tall Carisian female with streaks of silver in her fur stepped forward, her expression shifting from suspicion to astonishment. My queen, we fear the worst. Maris, Zavra greeted her. Draft staged a coup. Alliance forces loyal to a corrupt official are also involved. We must act quickly if we are to reclaim Caraxes and expose this plot to the rest of the Alliance. Maris bowed. The outpost stands ready. Many of us never trusted Draft, but we heard he had declared himself regent and that the Alliance was sending in peacekeepers to support him. Liam muttered a curse. Harlow's doing, no doubt. They're labeling you a traitor for harboring me, and labeling me a terrorist for supporting you. But we can still reach Admiral Reeves if I can just get a secure channel. Maris beckoned them into a control room. Monitors displayed the outside mountain terrain, the swirling energies that formed a sensor-blocking field. We've maintained partial communications with loyalists in the capital, but the main lines are jammed or monitored. Zavra placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. Use whatever systems they have, even if they're old. Admiral Reeves was your commanding officer, right? He nodded. Yes. She opposed Harlow's expansionist agendas. If she sees the evidence, she can force a shutdown of all operations here. Maris led him to a battered console. While Liam worked to bypass standard protocols and log into an encrypted Alliance emergency channel, Zavra conferred with other Carisian officers who trickled in from various corners of the outpost. The place buzzed with rumors of Draft's flight, the potential infiltration by Alliance special forces, and the precarious state of the monarchy. Finally, the console beeped. Liam let out a breath. I think I got through. A text-based interface flickered. Admiral Reeves's personal secure network had acknowledged his override codes. He swiftly uploaded the logs from his data vault, the proof of Harlow's collusion with the Vrex and the forged orders that had targeted him. Transmission sent, he announced. Now we wait and hope. Even as he spoke, alarms wailed throughout the outpost. A lookout's voice crackled over the comm. Hostile forces inbound. Multiple ships bearing Alliance transponders. They're preparing an orbital strike. Dread settled over Liam like a heavy weight. They must have traced our signal. We have to evacuate. Zavra bared her teeth. We can't outrun them in open skies. Our best chance is to hold here until your evidence reaches Admiral Reeves and she halts the operation. Maris rallied the outpost defenders, guiding them to anti-air batteries concealed among the crags. The mountain rumbled as beams of bright energy fired from overhead, striking the ridges with deafening explosions. Rocks collapsed in terrifying cascades. Liam and Zavra crouched behind a reinforced wall, covering their heads as fragments of stone and metal rained down. Liam, Zavra shouted over the din. We need to hold them off. If they land ground troops, they'll tear through the outpost to find us. He nodded, adrenaline surging. They joined a squad of Carisian soldiers at the southwestern perimeter. Sure enough, 2 Alliance dropships descended through the swirling dust, ramp doors sliding open to disgorge squads of heavily armed special forces. The firefight erupted instantly. Energy rounds whizzed past, and the air filled with blasts and the crackling ozone smell of plasma discharges. Zavra moved like a whirlwind, commanding squads to flank the intruders. Her old injury might have slowed her once, but now she fought with renewed purpose, gracefully ducking behind cover to fire precise shots from her Carisian pistol. Liam, unaccustomed to such direct combat, did his best to pick off targets, relying on his diplomatic training in self-defense. Even so, the Alliance soldiers were highly disciplined and well-equipped. They pressed forward, overshadowing the Caraxians in both numbers and advanced gear. A surge of heat overhead warned Liam that an Alliance warship in low orbit might fire again. They'll demolish the entire mountain if they have to, he warned Zavra, ducking behind a collapsed section of wall. We're running out of time. She snarled. Then fight harder, or we lose everything. Suddenly, her comm device beeped. She pressed it to her ear, her eyes narrowing. She met Liam's gaze with sudden intensity. "We have incoming transmissions from orbit. Someone's overriding the assault protocols." A moment later, a harsh mechanical voice boomed from the dropship's loudspeakers, echoing across the ravaged outpost. "All Alliance forces stand down by order of Admiral Reeves." "Repeat, stand down immediately." The troopers hesitated, weapons still aimed. Another voice, calmer, broke through the channel. "This is Admiral Reeves of the Galactic Alliance. We have received conclusive evidence implicating Director Harlow in illegal arms sales to the Vrex. All operations on Caraxis are suspended pending further investigation. Any soldier who continues hostilities will be charged with insubordination." Like a lever being pulled, the Alliance troopers began to lower their weapons, exchanging uncertain glances. Some turned to their commanding officer for guidance. Gradually, the gunfire petered out, replaced by shouts to hold fire. The Caraxians likewise held their positions, suspicious. An eerie quiet settled over the battlefield. Zavra exhaled, stepping forward, her blade raised only halfway. Liam followed, rifle in hand, unsure if this was a trick. Then, one of the Alliance troopers removed his helmet, revealing a human face etched with relief. "We have new orders," he confirmed. "Harlow's authority is revoked." Maris's voice crackled over the outpost comm. "The capital is also in chaos. Many of Drav's followers are surrendering after hearing the Alliance is no longer supporting them. Drav himself has vanished." Zavra lowered her weapon fully. She glanced at Liam, her face unreadable for a moment. Then she gave him a small, weary smile. "It appears your Admiral Reeves believed you." He allowed a shaky laugh. "Seems so." Every part of him trembled with the aftermath of combat. The mountain rumbled one last time as the Alliance warship ceased its bombardment, engines firing to pull back into higher orbit. The immediate threat was gone. Caraxian soldiers rushed to gather the wounded, and Alliance medics from the newly docile dropships offered assistance. The synergy was awkward, both sides eyeing each other with lingering distrust. But it was a step forward. Zavra found Liam amid the rubble, assisting a wounded Caraxian with bandages. She touched his shoulder lightly. "Kulme, we have a world to put right." He nodded. The two of them, along with Terrace, who had recovered enough to walk, boarded a borrowed transport and flew back toward the capital. Along the way, they saw pockets of loyalist Caraxians reasserting control, retaking the palace. Drav supporters, realizing no further help was coming from the Alliance conspirators, laid down arms or fled into the wilderness. By late afternoon, the palace once more recognized Zavra as queen. She walked through the battered halls, speaking with officers and officials who pledged their continued loyalty. Many apologized for being fooled or coerced by Draft. As the news circulated that Alliance forces had halted all strikes and that Harlow faced immediate arrest, Caraxis's mood shifted from dread to cautious optimism. In a private chamber near her throne room, Zavra and Liam conferred with a cluster of advisors. The data crystals retrieved from Liam's ship and the transmissions now validated by Admiral Reeves provided a concrete foundation for a new, legitimate alliance. Draft's name became a curse word on everyone's lips. No one knew where he was hiding, but his power was broken. Eventually, the others departed, leaving only Zavra and Liam alone in the grandly decorated room. Though exhausted, they smiled at each other. Outside the windows, the spires of the city shone in the lingering sunset, the sky streaked with violet. "So," Liam said softly, "what happens now?" "Caraxis rebuilds," Zavra replied. "We re-establish diplomatic ties with your alliance, minus those who sought to betray us all. I will not forget what almost befell my people, but nor will I forget that you risked everything to warn us. You played your part." She paused, her ears flicking back. "You are free to go, if you wish." He looked at her, heart pounding. "Is that what you want?" Her tail swished across the floor, an unspoken tension in her posture. "You once told me you were an envoy dedicated to the ideals of the Alliance. You've proven your loyalty to those ideals even when they betrayed you. Now I ask something else. Remain here as my advisor, my link to the honest side of the Alliance. Help me shape Caraxus's future. He took a step closer, tilting his head to look into her eyes. I'd be honored, Your Majesty. But is it only an advisory role you're offering? A glint of amusement sparked in her golden gaze. Perhaps it can be more. She reached out, taking his hand in her clawed fingers. I once claimed you by right of the hunt human. Now I claim you for another reason entirely. He couldn't hold back a grin. As long as you know, I choose this freely. Her tail curled around his waist, pulling him closer. And I will kill anyone who tries to take you from me, she murmured. He found himself drawn into her warmth, the lingering scent of the wilderness still clinging to her fur. A sense of belonging, of relief, and of purpose flooded him. They both had endured so much, and now there was a fragile but real hope that Caraxus and the Alliance could stand united. Thanks to the tenuous bond formed when he crashed in her world and somehow turned captivity into partnership. In the days that followed, news spread throughout the sector that the arms trafficking ring had been dismantled, Director Harlow was taken into custody, and Caraxus reaffirmed its place as a valued member in a newly reformed Alliance circle. Though pockets of dissent remained, the Queen's show of strength, combined with Liam's testimony and proof, convinced the majority of Caraxians that forging an alliance, based on trust rather than deception, was indeed the wiser path. And so from the highest spire of the royal compound, Zavra stood with Liam at her side, gazing over the city. The crisp air carried sense of renewal. Below, life moved forward. The planet might bear its scars, both from the crash and the battles that followed. But under Zavra's reign, Caraxus had taken a step toward a more stable future. Liam felt her tail brush against his leg, a reminder of that gentle possessiveness that, strangely, he now welcomed. He recalled how it all started. The shriek of tearing metal, the unstoppable fall into unknown forests. Fate had given him one path to survival, being claimed by a Caraxian queen. Yet in that singular moment, worlds had changed. Now, as he inhaled the alien, yet familiar air, he acknowledged the raw truth behind her earlier words. He had fallen into her domain, and she truly would destroy anyone who threatened to take him away. Far from being frightened, he felt an unexpected thrill at the depth of her devotion, and the realization that he would do the same for her. The sun set in a blaze of crimson, matching the color of the forests he once feared, and he let out a soft breath, content in the knowledge that together they had seized a new destiny neither had seen coming.